started back, obviously Memorial Day, we had a team meeting, 7 o'clock at night, kind of set the stage for the summer workout. Really our guys, kind of an unusual time. After we get done with the spring game, we have a few exit meetings that week, and then our coaches are basically gone the whole month of April and May, recruiting. So because the new world that we have with the portal world and everything else, had some roster additions. Want to make sure I got everybody on. Terrence Brooks joined us. His year worked out. Has been with us every day. So he was one of our first transfers that came in. We since have added Torrey Cox, a DB from Ohio U that really excited the skill set he brings where it's at. He'll be on campus this weekend. Carson Goda is a tight end that jumped out to us in the portal world. Brought him in really towards the end of last month, and just like his skill set, big rangy athlete, can make some plays happen. We'll be here this weekend. General Hunt, a defensive lineman that kind of similar to a couple guys we've had in the past, inside, very explosive, physical. All of those guys are older players, either in their last year or second to last year of being here. And like the veteran experience, then Ichin Machowski, I think I'm saying that right, is a kicker that was at A&M. He's actually been here the same amount of time as Terrence came in, started every workout, has been with us all the way through. So excited to get those guys here. The month of June for us as coaches has been a lot of time where we can actually be with our players in the meeting room and a little bit on the grass. There's some NCAA rules that would really changed our view in June. In the month of June, we've been on, in years past, we've been much more on the road, going to satellite camps and different events that expose us to players maybe a little bit more across the country. I just think the world has changed to, the way things are being recruited, the scholarship allocation. We had 12 players leave in the second semester, which opened up 12 opportunities for not only our current guys that we were counting on being here already, but also add in about 6 or 7 more roster spots. So we still have a couple more out there that we'll add, but those should be completed here and everybody be in place in sometime early July. So a different world of college athletics, very exciting time. I think everybody wants to talk about all the negative. I think it's truly, in my, going into my 16th year as a head coach, just fun, dynamic. It allows you to kind of see things in a different light. I think for me here at the University of Illinois, especially when it started here in the portal world and NIL, that was a combination together. You didn't know exactly how it was going to go. I think we as coaches probably knew how it was going to go. It's awesome to allow our players to get paid really at an unprecedented level. But one thing that really became dynamic is the people that had larger NIL opportunity funds were all of a sudden winning a lot of scholarship battles that you were involved with. It wasn't about who can recruit you anymore. It was about who was going to pay you, right? And I think now it's kind of evolving back to if everybody kind of has the same plateau to work off of. I just really get intrigued by now you can let good coaches coach, get kind of similar maybe opportunities at different institutions across the country. I think to be in this league now with 18 teams anywhere from the West Coast to the East Coast and everywhere in between, it's really a fun, exciting time. You can feel it in the kids in recruiting. We have a weekend coming this weekend where we have several kids that are already committed or have silently committed to maybe some perennial higher powers, but are willing to come and take a look because they know where we're at in the world of college football is kind of evolving. So that part's exciting. Also, haven't talked to you guys, we added Corey Parker, obviously, to our staff. Corey, we were actually just together on a defensive trip that we took that was fun to be around those guys kind of outside of Illinois here. And, I have 3 new coaches on defense in conjunction with Aaron and J-Mo that I'm really excited about outside of the ball, what they bring and the energy that they definitely can feel with their players. So really other than that, we're just kind of grinding out here. June is a huge recruiting weekend, recruiting month, and so the next 3 weekends will be big. Kind of had little mini weekends, 2 or 3 guys at a time, but this weekend and then actually in 2 weekends are 2 of our premier weekends that we kind of always had for high school players that'll be going into their senior years. With that, open up.
You talked about the evolution of college football, NIL, transfer portal. Have you evolved in your approach to the transfer portal and all that? Like how?
Well, 3 things, right? Like because we hadn't lost a lot, we hadn't really been able to gain a lot, right? So when we during the first 2 years at portal just didn't have a lot of players leave. I think partly because when we got here, we had kind of changed how we had done things, and kids had seen such a significant increase in what we were pouring into them that very few didn't want to leave. But now some of the guys that we recruited who maybe quite weren't at starter roles, and the 12 guys that left, not one guy was a starter, right? Not one player, right? But they were guys that, for the majority, they were guys that were 3s and below. So I kind of understand it. most of those guys walked out of my office with a big hug and wished them the best of luck, anything I could do to help them. There were a couple guys that were in the 2 deep that obviously we'd love to have them come and stay, but if they wanted grass to be greener, I totally get it. And then I think now in the evolution of what we've seen here the last couple of weeks, this whole revenue sharing and the split that's going to happen, I don't think anybody knows the answers, but I do know that the goal of it is to try and have everybody have a comparable salary structure, right? That you can literally parlay into your roster. And I think to have people play on more even ground, I think is something that we'd all like.
Fred, there's a proposal out there that's making the waves about the elimination of walk-ons. I know that you were a former walk-on.
Yeah.
You have a personal connection with that group, and I imagine you have some thoughts on.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. So one of the byproducts of this new legislation, I think, or the precedents that got set was that, everything from the viewing of scholarships to roster sizes, no one knows the answer. And I kind of, as a head coach, we're going on a weekend that we're recruiting 2025 players, right? Guys that are going to be on our 2025 roster, and no one can tell us what that's going to be yet, right? So, I think the walk-on world as we know it is definitely going to evolve and change, which, whichever view you have, I think more walk-ons that would have been potential walk-ons will now have to start off with scholarships, maybe that next level of developmental guys, but also maybe a lot more fluid. Like I found it interesting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 3 of our former walk-ons are now scholarship players at other MAC or FCS schools, which I'm happy for them, but it shows kind of what we've been doing, right? And again, it's just another challenge that you got to be aware of and try to adjust to.
Do you find yourself as a former walk-on yourself and having affinity for that type of a player, to be fighting for that type of player? I
get the question, but no. Like, okay. I think you want, hey, if they tell me I got 85, I want 85 of the best I can get. If I get 100, I want 100 of the best I can get. If they say it's 125, I'm going to try to get 125 of the best. I think one of the things to think about is, to a certain degree, if you allow every school to have a roster of 100 and whatever it is, right, then some of the schools that traditionally have been in place for 50 years as powers, it's going to be easier for them to add more to their roster and take less away from those that haven't. But again, it's just how you outlook it. I think our group, our staff, Pat Middleton, who I actually kind of promoted to a general manager title now, just that world is, we've increased our personnel department tenfold since I've been here, and still probably climbing, just because that world is such a different world now than ever before in college football.
Coach, what have the new assistant coaches added to the recruiting effort? It seems like there's kind of an uptick in the talent pool that's visiting here in June.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I think, in particular, Clint and Archie, Steph especially, those guys brought in dynamic areas that we hadn't been exposed to here, right? I had always tried to kind of get into the Dallas area. Really, the only guy we had used in that area was Kevin, but these 2 guys immediately brought street cred, and I think that can be seen right now. But also in the portal world, good coaches attract good players no matter where they are, right? So I think that part, because of their tradition, their history, has done that. But also I think because of what we can do now in the landscape of a jump in our NIL opportunities, in addition to what's coming down the road in revenue sharing, I think that's why you're seeing a little bit more of maybe premium players coming.
Got a big month of June, obviously, with officials. Like, what does this month mean for you guys and setting the foundation? How have all of you guys evolved that month over the time you've been here to where you are now?
I think go back to our first June, right, and to see guys in our program now that are on the verge of really becoming our more dominant players, right? I think that part is never lost sight of. June's got to be big for us. We don't do a lot of May visits just because our players are gone, and for us at Illinois, our best recruiters are our players, without a doubt. I mean, I love all of our coaches. They do a tremendous job. But when you got a kid here for 48 hours and he wants to know what it's like to be at Illinois, when he could sit in a player panel with 5 of his teammates that will play his position, they can tell him what it's like to walk the walk here. And when parents see that, and especially parents that have been around other places, like, for instance, I know a lot's been said, Terrence Brooks, here's a guy that was committed to Ohio State, decommitted, went to Texas. I think his visits were Ohio State, Texas, I believe Oregon, maybe Georgia, and there was another premium program, right? And the dad, when he came here, him and Terrence both were like, man, this is just different, right? And one of the things we've always said, if we just get someone on our campus and they can see us and feel us with an open mind, we can beat anybody. And I think that's the way we've evolved to.
What do you think you guys accomplished in the transfer portal, particularly on the defense where you had some holes to fill?
Yeah, obviously we wanted to get a couple premier, some perimeter guys. Just lost pure numbers. Zach Toby, wasn't projected to be a starter for it, but we thought he could play, valuable snaps. So to replace that is just smart, right? You had to do that, and that's probably true at the case. Really we lost. The only guys that we lost in the two deep were Zach, Trey, and Anthony, and we replaced those guys with guys that we feel that are in that two deep, if not better. So in a way, it kind of helped us. But offensively, I know that there's still a little bit work in progress. We feel really good about a guy that I think's coming. We just can't announce it at this point. But I think to get some value and some depth at a couple key positions was huge, and I think we addressed that.
Coach, you've got Oregon this year, obviously, of the new four. Are you paying attention to any of the three that are coming?
Do I what? Pay attention to what?
The new four school.
Oh, yeah, for sure, Oregon. Yeah.
I don't forget that, but
Yep.
how about everybody else? Not,
Unless it's a championship game, we'll have a lot of games under our belt by then, and they will too. So Oregon is on our agenda. We got a unique schedule. We got 6 rematch games and 6 new games. So anybody that's a new game on our horizon, I obviously naturally pay attention to them a little bit more than any other point, But Rutgers isn't new for us, but they're new that we didn't play them last year. Penn State, ironically, was a rematch game, right? But Michigan wasn't on our agenda this year, but was last year, or this past year, but was 2 years ago. So they're treated as a new opponent. So it's kind of fun to have 6 and 6 and kind of see where it lays.
You mentioned the general manager role for Pat.
Mm-hmm.
How do you put that title in the college context and the duties versus what people might think with professional?
Yeah, great question. Just go to every other college program and you look, they usually say general manager. So I was probably one of the last to do it. Pat, when he and I came together and talked about his opportunity here at Illinois, I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. But after being around him a couple of weeks, I'm like, this guy can really help us. And with the value of him, his experience here before I got here, he'd been with 2 coaches that, had previously fallen, right, and not come through the way that they had hoped. So I thought his experience from those times were invaluable. And then just to learn how we kind of think, like, it was funny after my first year being with him, I go, what's your biggest takeaway? He goes, you never take no for an answer, right? And I think that's something that is very true, especially coming to a place that's never done it the way they want to do it, right? Like when you get a no, it's really saying, well, let's find another way to find yes, right? And Pat's been awesome in that regards. Mark Torresani, my chief of staff, has truly just been a blessing every step of my career just because he can kind of oversee all of that. And so Mark still kind of holds everything accountable from the non-football coaching side of it, right? But Pat in this role with the personnel side is just very important in this world that we're in. Knowing what's not only going on here, but what's going on everywhere else in the personnel side of the game, and that's probably what he's featured on, which is kind of what a general manager's role is in the NFL.
Brett, we've asked you about the Northwestern game, but my question is, did you have any logistical concerns still about Wrigley Field and whether or not it can have 2 working sidelines?
I don't think so. I watched the Iowa Northwestern game a year ago. They played on the same sideline.
Right.
Austin, Ohio State are the only 2 that have that problem this year because we're at Wrigley. So I've been basically reassured that we will not be on the same sideline.
Okay.
So I know they can't sell tickets because when they sell tickets down a certain level, people can't see. So we made it very clear that's why their tickets aren't for sale yet, right? There's all the I's and haven't been dotted and T's crossed. So I think, I love Wrigley. I'm a Cubs guy. Sang there several times, so I'm all there. I don't think they'll let me sing during halftime, but
I just wanted to know if you've been assured there will be 2 working sidelines. If that,
I haven't seen it written, but we definitely made a very common agreement that that's something that neither us and Ohio State, Ryan Day and I have been on the same page since day one about that one. It's unrealistic. It changed the game. It's too many nuances within a week, and it can be easily avoided. So there's no reason to do it.
What do you feel like you guys have done with the defensive front? The defensive front at the end of the season, you guys brought in a lot of new faces. What do you feel like you've accomplished with that?
Well, I think the 2 things, right? Like you play to your player's strength. So we have a group of outside linebackers who are versatile guys that I think we can use them in different ways, and then also. I would say probably 2 of the nicest surprises out of spring ball. One was a transfer that really came on his own. T-Rod has just incredibly improved from where he was a year ago. Like the value of him, like we've kind of had this every year at that position, a new nose that had been a prior portal guy, right? Comes in and does some things. And then Dennis Briggs really made a huge impact from the day he arrived, and then Alex Beret, another guy, and then there's a host of these young guys that Pat Farrell unfortunately had an ankle injury, but he was playing some really good football. So I think to maximize our players and their strengths of points of strength is going to be a big part.
You had some guys
Last question here.
that banged up during the spring, couldn't go. Where's that kind of stem?
Yeah, everybody is actually cleared and running 100% other than James Crute and KO, Kanano Odalaga.
Okay.
So two guys, both ironically at the linebackers, but everybody else, Matt Bailey's back out there, Xavier Scott's out there, Demetrius Hill's out there, anybody and everybody, who's just Caden Fagan, yeah, Caden got 100% cleared. Yeah, so really the only two that are limited, well, there's a couple guys that have some acute hamstrings and stuff that should be back in a couple weeks, but those are the only two that have long-term guys that still aren't cleared. But Kanena should be cleared before we get through July, and I think James is going to go right up to about the start of camp.